Mula and good evening, Fiji. Welcome to the State of the Fijian, a show where we talk about the state and the Fijian and the politics that affects all of us. COVID-19 saw many Fijians lose their jobs and go on reduced work hours, causing many socioeconomic problems in Fiji. Terminations and rehiring processes that did not follow international standards and international laws were topics of discussion. Human rights lawyers and advocates and trade unions were at the forefront of discussions on government's no jab, no job policy. To talk more about workers' rights in Fiji, I have with me in studios today Mr. Felix Anthony, the National Secretary of the Fiji Trades Union Congress. Mr. Anthony, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to start with the first question, which is, do you think that unions are still recognized in Fiji? And I ask this because I understand that the bargaining power of unions have been greatly reduced. It begs the question of recognition and effectiveness.
Well, yes, the unions are still recognized in Fiji, but due to the pandemic, of course, we've seen some of the unions being affected very badly. For instance, in the hotel industry, the tourism industry. And there has been little bargaining there because the workers have all been out of work. But in other sectors, yes, the unions are still there. Some are more effective than the others. But it is also a very, it's a time of soul searching for the trade union movement as to how we can become more effective and deal with the challenges that this pandemic has made us see. So, but let me say that we are trying to do our best in the circumstances. Of course, one of the bigger problems that we had was because of the lockdown. The meetings were not allowed, the contact with the membership was not allowed, and of course there was little collective bargaining in terms of wage or terms and conditions of employment.
Yeah. I'm going to come back to COVID-19 and the workers, but just a brief background on what is the Fiji Trades Union Congress, who are its membership, how do you function as a organization?
The Fiji Trades Union Congress is an umbrella body of trade unions in the country. The Fiji Trades Union Congress has trade unions that are affiliated to it as members. The Fiji Trades Union Congress does not have individual members, to say, but trade unions that become members of the Fiji Trades Union Congress.
How many members are there?
We have altogether about 28 unions. Right. Who are affiliated to the Fiji Trades Union Congress and who are operating in a normal manner. And that means around more than 40,000 workers in the country that these unions cover. Quite apart from that, quite apart from just the membership of the unions, the Fiji Trades Union Congress engages in discussions and consultations with the Employers Federation, with the government, in trying to review labor laws that would affect every worker in the country. For instance, the Employment Relations Act that we negotiated with the employers and government some years back in 2007. That was a 10-year process before we actually got the Employment Relations Act in place. And that Act now actually affects all the workers of this country. So despite the fact that our membership is only with the trade unions, the workers that the trade unions cover, the work that we do actually affects all the workers of the country.
And why should workers join trade unions? What are the benefits to the workers with the work that trade unions do?
Well, I think one of the biggest benefits is that the workers are in a position to collectively bargain. For instance, better terms and conditions of employment, better wage salaries, and not only that, but they are also being able to be represented by the unions in disciplinary matters, in cases of termination, suspensions, or redundancies. All these are matters that trade unions deal with. If a worker is not a member of a trade union, they really don't have that bargaining power as an individual.
But does that bargaining power exist? What with the laws and legislations we have, which has struck out the right to assembly, strike, protest, and...
Well, the right to strike is a fundamental right of trade unions. Yes, unfortunately, we have laws in this country that actually while the Constitution talks about the right to assembly, right freedom of speech, right to strike and all that, the laws are so restrictive that workers are really not able to go on strike. And these are matters that we have been trying to address through the International Labour Organization. We have filed complaints against the Fijian government at the ILO. The Committee of Experts at the ILO have asked this government to amend the labour laws so that the laws are not just written as written law, but that people are able to actually exercise these rights. So that's work in progress.
And how successful have you been with this ILO and government and trade union discussions around these laws?
Well, we've had little success so far, but it's a process that takes time. We were supposed to have an ILO context mission visit Fiji to address some of these issues that the Committee of Experts had asked the government to deal with. Unfortunately, because of the pandemic, this has all been delayed for more than a year now. But we're hoping that as soon as we open up after December, we will have the context mission here and we'll be able to sit down again with government and get some kind of commitment. Unfortunately, let me just say that government has not been sincere in its commitments. The agreements that we signed in 2015 and 2016 with the ILO and the Employers Federation and government, the government has not delivered on those agreements, unfortunately. But that's not for us to give up on. We are going to continue to pressure government. We're going to continue to insist that our laws comply fully with the international standards, ILO standards, the core labor standards.
Okay, so we are going to be back with more, and we're going to talk more on what were those ILO agreements signed in 2015 right after this break. Welcome back. You are on State of the Fijian, and we are talking to Mr. Felix Anthony, National Secretary of the Fiji Trades Union Congress on Workers' Rights in Fiji. We just finished talking about the 2015 agreement between ILO and the Fiji Trades Union Congress and the government. I just wanted to ask, what are the key objectives of the 2015 agreements, and to what extent has it been met?
Well, the key objectives of the 2015 agreement was that the government would review all the labor laws in the country to ensure full compliance with the ILO core labor standards. They include the right to belong to a union, the right to collective bargaining, no forced labor, for instance, and there's 8 core conventions. So we were to go through the labor laws, identify areas where they did not comply. And in fact, the Committee of Experts has already done that for us. They've listed out the areas where the labor laws need to be amended so that they comply with the international labor conventions. Yeah, government undertook to do that. The second bit was to do with the essential industries which government created, and across the board basically made all government statutory bodies essential services, the banks essential services, Fiji Airways essential services, town and city councils essential services. They are not essential services.
So what does that mean?
So what that means is that these are entities that have a different piece of legislation, which is the Employment Relations Amendment Act of 2016, which actually prescribes a different standard for these companies, where strikes would be all impossible. The rights of workers, if there were disputes, they would have to be reported within 21 days. And if they weren't, you'd lose out on that. It basically really impacted rights issues in regards to workers. And under the ILO convention, essential services mean any services that endanger health or safety of people. That's all.
Okay. What is the tripartite agreement and how does it work, and what is its status in Fiji?
Well, we are supposed to have a tripartite machinery in this country, and which we call the Employment Relations Advisory Board, or ERAB. That's supposed to consist of workers, employers and government. Yeah, and under the ILO convention, the workers are represented by the most representative trade union body, which is FTUC. The employers is FSEF, the Employers Federation, and the government. And this body needs to meet from time to time to review any amendments to labor laws or to make recommendations to the minister on any new amendments that the board thinks is necessary. And that includes even the wages councils, the different industry wages councils that should be reviewed from time to time. But unfortunately, that has not worked. Yeah, we've had a few meetings, and we have government officials who come without a mandate to simply sit down and listen, and then they have to go back to their masters to try and get some kind of direction, and that arrangement simply does not work. Yeah. In the Tripartite forum that we had.
Yeah. So I want to tend towards COVID-19 and what has been the plight of workers' right in Fiji. And for that, I want to play a video of a parliament sitting where the Minister for Employment, Mr. Praveen Bala, has made a comment. And I would like to know your comment on this. Yeah?
Sure.
Mr. Speaker said there is no force. I'm telling you why. During our survey, we have found out that there are some workers who do not want to be vaccinated and who do not want to turn up for the work. So it's their choice. So they are the group of people. So I don't know where really the honorable member is coming from. Honestly speaking, our survey reveals that there are workers who do not want to be vaccinated and who do not want to turn up for work as well.
Okay. So the minister says that even though government's got the no jab, no job policy, nobody is being forced to get vaccinated. What are your comments on that?
I really think the minister doesn't quite understand what he's talking about. If you are going to tell people no jab, no job, you are actually imposing on the workers a condition of employment. Yeah, and that is unfair. That is unfair.
But the government has gone on to say that as the civil service body, they have the right via the constitution to impose these work laws. Is that correct?
Well, this government has the right to do anything it wants. It doesn't even follow the laws that are in place. Yeah, I mean, we have the Employment Relations Act, which basically says, or the Constitution for that matter, even the country, that everyone has the right to decent health care, and no one can be forced to take any certain medication and so forth. But here we have this imposition, and I believe that this minister has not sat back and thought about what the alternatives could be so that people don't lose jobs. More so at this difficult time, yeah, with the COVID. And there are alternatives. And he's just not thinking out of the box. Let me say one alternative is to see how workers can be accommodated without having the vaccine if they so wish not to have it. For instance, work from home. And there are possibilities. Or there are possibilities where workers could have a separate workplace arrangement at, say, the factory level or wherever.
How would this work?
Alternatively, employers could have the testing kits which they will do on a regular basis where workers go to work.
But how would this work with places like supermarkets where there's high contact between workers and the public?
Well, I think what we need is to, like for supermarkets and all that, I think what we need is testing kits, more testing kits where it would be easy. If someone wants to go to the supermarket, they should be prepared to at least have a test.
Yeah. And how do we balance the fact that there are some workers who are vaccinated but they fear of getting infected by those who choose not to get vaccinated in the same workplace when there is no provisions or there is no possibility of them being separated at work? How do you balance that? They're both your members, let's just say.
Well, the same people, I don't think they fear when they're outside. You mix around with people who are not vaccinated.
Yeah.
We haven't seen any real serious issues with that.
Yeah.
So why would you still want to have a fear in a different place? Yeah, one of the things, the hypocrisy of this whole thing is employers talk about duty of care. We have to care for our workers. That's fine, duty of care, but the duty of care doesn't stop at the door.
Right.
right? You're going to look after everyone at the workplace, yeah? Even those that are not vaccinated. You must take that full responsibility, not use that as an excuse to disallow people.
Yeah. Okay. We have reached the end of this segment. Very interesting conversation. Welcome back. You're watching State of the Fijian, and we are in studios with Mr. Felix Anthony, National Secretary of the Fiji Trades Union Congress. This last segment, we talked about COVID-19, workers' rights, and the no jab, no job policy. I want to continue with that conversation, Mr. Anthony, about something that the General Secretary of the Fiji Public Service Association said, where he talked about civil servants should get the jab, it's a duty of care, they should lead by example. So what I'm asking here is, two trade unionists with sort of opposing views on the no jab, no job policy.
Well, that may seem so, but we don't believe that it is right to make this mandatory. We have to respect people's rights. That it is their right to have the vaccine or not to. And if they don't, there should be certain, as I've explained, certain procedures put in place where everyone stays safe. And at the same time, we respect their rights. But it should not be made mandatory, and the laws that have been imposed are far too stringent. For instance, after 1st of November, employers must fire people. Yeah, you terminate people.
Have you had reports of your own members?
Yes.
And what has the union done?
We have people who have been fired. What the law actually states is that if someone does not get vaccinated by the 1st of November, that becomes a basis for dismissal. The law does not make it mandatory, though, but employers read it as a mandatory provision and have terminated workers on the 1st of May. And there's been many workers who have lost their livelihoods that way.
Your members?
Yes, my members as well.
What is the union doing
for
them?
Well, we have taken this matter up with management, and we are in discussions with management to say that there are workers who have now agreed, because of the pressure that's been put on them, to get vaccinated, and they should be given an opportunity to do so without losing their jobs. Yeah, but as I've said before, I don't believe that we needed such stringent laws to be imposed on the people.
And is FTUC or any of its members challenging this in court?
I understand that there are a group of workers who are challenging this in court. That's I think still a matter that needs to be decided upon.
Okay, and because it touched on termination, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Fiji Airways termination. That was something that caused a lot of discussion in Fiji about how the termination happened, and then the laws were changed and maybe applied retrospectively. What was the trades union stance, and what do you think about that coming about?
I think the Fiji Airways terminations, the ATS terminations, is a embarrassment to the government, to the companies that have taken such drastic action. Let me say that's an example of how bad employers actually behave in times like this. What we need, what we saw was that all the agreements that were in place were totally disregarded, and workers were simply told that they don't have a job. Many were just simply learned of their dismissals through a text message. No more than that. That's not how we do that. And I think these terminations, I think that's a demonstration of how not to treat people, workers who have been so loyal in the good times.
In that same vein, I think the rehiring process, there has been those who have served a number of years, they are unable to get back those service years within the new hiring that's happening.
Well, I think it's obvious that the whole intent of the terminations was to terminate people, cancel their contracts, and then rehire them at a cheaper rate, exploit these workers. And that's what's happening now. People who are being rehired are at a lower salary or wage levels with less conditions of work and so forth. So that's a nasty way of treating people, basically.
Okay, so one of the parts of this segment that we have is called the Public's Hot Seat, where our focus group of young people normally give us questions on the topic that we are doing the episode on. So I'm going to play something by a young person named Uzair Akbar to get your comments on.
What can a company do when the law prohibits full recognition of the right to freedom of association concerning workers who are forbidden from joining trade unions?
So I think what this is asking is, how can companies in good faith ensure that workers get their right even if the laws are oppressive or not in the favor of workers' right?
Well, we have laws that actually guarantee the right of workers to join a union. In fact, Section 6 of the Employment Relations Act basically says that no employer can make it a condition of work that a worker joins a union or cannot join a union. So if a worker does that, or an employer does that to say you can't join a union, that's illegal. The problem we have is the implementation of those laws, which the Ministry of Labour is hesitant to implement. And if they were to implement that, every worker in this country would have the right to join a trade union. We can't rely on the good heart of any employer to say, yes, please join the union. It just doesn't work that way. Yeah. No employer, I think, wants to deal with a union if they don't have to. That's a reality on the ground. So we can't rely on employers to say, please join the union.
Okay. We've just got a few minutes left. I'm going to play you another video with a question.
Can all jobs be part of the union? And following up to that question, what should we do to be part of the union?
So can all jobs be part of a union, and what should workers do if they want to be? I just want to add one more question there, and that is, can we have senior managers joining unions the same as junior managers, seeing that they are their supervisors?
Yes, the law states that any worker has the right to join a trade union, any worker. It does not specify who can, who can't. Of course, you can't have the chief executive of the company join the union, but any other worker whose job classification does not deal with any confidential matters of the company should be able to join the union. Any worker should be able to join the union. And the only way you can do that is if you approach a particular union to join the union, or you call us at FTUC, and we will be too happy to assist any worker who wants to join a union.
This has been an interesting conversation, Mr. Anthony. Thank you for joining us, and we will be back next week with another guest on the state of the Fijian. Till then, please, some more there.